You know what? Here, it's fitting, right? We're talking about nicotine. Let's pop in a nicotine. They come in many flavors. This one here is cinnamon. Like I said, coffee, mint, peppermint, spearmint, wintergreen, citrus, whatever flavors you can think of, you name it, they've got it. It come in 3 milligrams, 6 milligrams, and I think some of them even go up higher to 9 and 12 milligram doses. All right, beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. Is nicotine always bad for you? So nicotine, that is what we're going to be talking about in this video. Most people hear that word and they immediately think of cigarettes, addiction, and cancer. But what if I told you the story is a little more complicated, as it always is? So in this video, we're going to be breaking down what nicotine actually is, how it works in the body and in the brain, its potential benefits, and of course, the risks that you need to know about. If you are new to this channel, my name is Mahmoud. I am a pharmacist by training, but I don't practice pharmacy because it sucks. But I am an entrepreneur, a trainer, and nutrition coach by passion, baby, passion. I stepped away from traditional pharmacy to help people get healthy in a more practical and, of course, sustainable way, because medications won't get you there on their own. So between building businesses and raising 3 boys and juggling all that life has to offer, I know how hard it is to stay healthy and in shape when you're a busy person. Now, this channel is where I share straight up, no fluff advice on health, fitness, supplements, nutrition, medication, and how you can feel your best even on your busiest days without making it super complicated and super difficult. And to make things easier for you, for this video specifically, I've created a handout that covers everything discussed in this video. So it goes over what nicotine is, how it works, its benefits, its risks, and it also includes a comparison chart between different products that contain nicotine. Nicotine is a natural chemical found in tobacco. When you consume it, nicotine attaches to special docking stations in your brain and body called nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, or the acronym is NACHRs for short, if you prefer using the acronym. So once it binds, it triggers the release of brain chemicals like dopamine, which is responsible for driving reward and pleasure, glutamate, which helps with learning and memory, and also GABA, which has a calming effect. That's why nicotine can feel both stimulating and relaxing at the same time. The main receptors that are involved are called alpha, beta, and alpha. Not that it really matters, but they play a role in both nicotine's addictive potential and its ability to temporarily sharpen your focus. All right, so let's talk benefits. Let's talk about the upside first, because yes, nicotine isn't all bad. It can improve attention, memory, and learning, not just in healthy people, but also in individuals with conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ADHD, and schizophrenia. Nicotine has anti-inflammatory properties. It's been studied in illnesses like ulcerative colitis and arthritis. Early research even suggests it may protect brain cells from damage in certain diseases, though we don't know yet how meaningful this is in real life for people. But here's the catch when it comes to nicotine. The risks can be serious, and nicotine is one of the most addictive substances. That's why quitting smoking or vaping is so difficult for so many people that are habitual smokers. Nicotine can raise blood pressure, it can damage blood vessels, and increase the risks of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Now, long-term use is linked to higher risks of cancer and breathing problems, especially when smoking. That is the caveat, and I'll dive deeper a little bit in terms of the risks. This obviously covers the risks associated with consuming nicotine through vaping or cigarettes. Obviously, the risks are much lower if you're doing something like a nicotine pouch or nicotine gum. And in young people or during pregnancy, nicotine can interfere with brain development, weakening memory and thinking, and it increases the risks of future substance abuse. Nicotine is often described as a double-edged sword. At small or moderate doses, it can improve thinking, but at higher doses or with long-term use, it can impair brain function. Teens and young adults are especially vulnerable since their brains are still developing, which is why I would recommend that if you are under the age of 18 or even between the ages of 18 and 25, to stay away from nicotine. It's not something that you want to be getting into the habit of using, especially when your brain is still developing. And quitting is not easy either. Withdrawal can temporarily worsen memory and focus, which can make relapse more likely. Let's talk about nicotine pouches versus cigarettes, because obviously the risk to benefit profile will differ between those two methods of consuming nicotine. All right, so now what about alternatives like nicotine pouches? So compared to cigarettes, pouches don't involve smoke or burning, obviously. That means no tar, no carbon monoxide, and far fewer cancer-causing chemicals. But they're not risk-free. Pouches can irritate the mouth, can cause gum problems, and at high doses can stress the heart. And remember, they're still addictive. And when it comes to heart health, pouches are going to be safer than smoking, but they're not completely harmless. Both cigarettes and high-strength pouches can raise heart rate and stiffen blood vessels, and with long-term use, the risk is lower. Now, long-term, the risk is lower with pouches than cigarettes, but it is still worth mentioning, and it's still a concern, especially for people with existing heart conditions. Let's talk about nicotine and sleep. Nicotine also affects sleep. It makes it harder to fall asleep, harder to stay asleep, and reduces both deep sleep and REM sleep. So using nicotine close to bedtime makes things even worse, and when people try to quit, withdrawal often will disrupt sleep, making it even harder to stay off nicotine. Now let's talk about side effects, because anything, whether it's drugs or over-the-counter supplements, everything has side effects. So let's dive into some of the most common side effects that people experience when they are using nicotine. Side effects of nicotine include mouth and throat irritation, coughing, nausea, dizziness, headache, and racing heartbeat. Now, products like gum or pouches can even cause mouth sores in some people. Here's how different nicotine products stack up. Cigarettes, they have the highest risks. They deliver nicotine fast and they expose you to thousands of toxic chemicals, so stay away from consuming nicotine through cigarettes. Then you've got vapes. They have fewer harmful chemicals but still addictive and not completely risk-free. Then you've got your pouches, patches, gum, and lozenges. Safer options, they are FDA approved for quitting smoking. And people's all-time favorite and the most common and popular is nicotine pouches. Nicotine pouches are tobacco-free versions and are safer than cigarettes, but they still carry risks that we've previously discussed. And then you've got chewing tobacco. It still contains tobacco, and so they have cancer-causing compounds, so it's best to avoid them. If you are going to try nicotine, then the safest bet is going to be the FDA-approved patches and nicotine gums. If you don't want to go down that route, then the next best thing is going to be the pouches. So in terms of worst to best, worst is cigarettes, vaping, chewing tobacco, then you've got gums and patches and pouches. I would argue that these two are tied, but I would place the FDA-approved products, so patches, gums, as safer alternatives or safer forms of nicotine compared to pouches. Now, another thing to consider is the additives and contaminants. Most products contain flavors, pH buffers, or texture agents. Vapes in particular can expose users to metals like nickel and lead or irritating chemicals formed when the liquid is heated. Okay. That's why FDA-approved products are going to be generally the safest because they are actually regulated and tested. Some pouches like Zyn have been authorized by the FDA as safer than smokeless tobacco options, but that doesn't mean they are risk-free, and that's the biggest takeaway from this video. I want you to understand that there are potential benefits to using nicotine, and I also want you to be aware of the risks, and the most important part is to understand that any of the products discussed are not even what appears to be the safest options like pouches and the FDA approved nicotine products. They are not risk-free, and obviously one of the biggest risks is going to be addiction. If you take nothing else from this video, take these two key points. There are some benefits to nicotine, but there are also risks, and the risk level will vary depending on which form of nicotine you decide to consume. Nicotine also interacts with other stimulants like caffeine, amphetamine, or cocaine. When combined, the effects of both drugs become stronger, which increases the risk of dependence. Are you picking up a theme in this video? Even things like caffeine can make nicotine withdrawal feel easier, but it also reinforces the habit. Use is a major risk factor, but that's what most of us do anyway. I know I do it myself when I take a nicotine and I'm drinking coffee or drinking an energy drink. Just be aware that there are some risks associated with co-using stimulants like nicotine and caffeine. All right, so let's talk dosage and uses. If nicotine is used for smoking cessation, then you want to follow the product instructions. For non-smokers, there really isn't an optimal dose established. The general advice is to start with the lowest dose possible and work up if necessary, but always remember nicotine is not risk-free, and that's really why I wanted to make this video. It's because there's a lot of use of nicotine pouches like Zyn. I use it myself, and I just want people to be educated and aware about nicotine and about its potential benefits, but obviously make people aware that it is not completely risk-free. If you are going to try nicotine, which obviously most people have, and most people intend on trying it, I tried it, I like it, and I think you got to try things, see if it works for you, if it doesn't. But if you are planning on trying nicotine, then I would recommend starting with the lowest dose possible. That is the general principle that you learn in pharmacy. Start low and go slow when it comes to dosing medications. The same thing applies to supplements and things like nicotine, which are not really considered a supplement. You can consider it a drug, a stimulant, whatever you like, but start low and go slow. So start at the 3 milligrams. If you're able to find like the gums, which come in 2 and 4 milligrams, start even with the 2 milligram and then gradually go up in the dose. Don't start right off the bat with the highest dose. It's not going to be pleasant because one of the main side effects of nicotine is severe nausea. If you're not used to it and you're starting at the higher dose, the greater the dose, the greater or the higher risk of experiencing side effects. So do yourself a favor and start on the lower dose and go from there. Is nicotine always bad? Not exactly. In my opinion, it has some interesting effects on the brain and may even have therapeutic uses, but the risks, especially around addiction, heart disease, and long-term brain effects are real and significant, and I would factor those in before you commit to long-term use. Now, the safest option is to avoid nicotine altogether, but if you are going to use it, then use patches, gum, or lozenges because they are far less harmful than smoking. And remember, if you want a simple evidence-based summary of everything I talked about in this video, then download the free handout that I created for you. It's linked in the description below, and it includes all the key points discussed, and it even dives deeper into the key points discussed about nicotine, from how it works to its benefits and risks. Thanks for watching this video, and if you found it helpful, then hit and subscribe and let me know in the comments what your experience with nicotine is. What nicotine product do you use and do you rely on? Is it smoking, which I strongly advise against? Is it nicotine gums, patches, pouches? Let me know your experience with nicotine. Thanks again for watching this video. We've got the nicotine, we've got the caffeine, which, by the way, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you check out this video I did right here, all about caffeine, benefits, risks, dosing, whether there's such a thing as toxic dosing with caffeine, is there a limit to caffeine intake? Make sure you check out this video right here.